Airlocks.
Yeah, I would fly one, yes.
I'd fly one.
I'd fly one.
This side. Hurry.
This question is for Eddie and Mary, and I was just wondering, at the end of the fourth season, at the end of the fourth season, Bill tells Laura that she made him believe, she gave him faith that he never had through the whole series. So I was just wondering if you both thought that on Earth, once Laura died, did Bill keep that faith that she'd given him, or did it die with her?
I'll let Bill answer that.
Laura, saddest moment in my years of working in this medium was losing Laura. To me, I'd like to do the continuing story of what happened to all of us once we hit the world. But I can honestly tell you that it was, Adama was inspired. He did hold on to the hope, and he did move forward. And he did have children, and he did move on, and those children became the grandparents to the generations that came of humanity, and finally leaving off with Gaff and Blade Runner.
Okay, but, like, who did he have children with?
You know what this reminds me of? We're so giddy. This is like one of our 14-hour days on set. Let's just get a little strange at the end of the day, and Mary starts giggling, and then we're all giggling, and oh boy, I miss you guys. I miss working with you.
Yeah.
Question from this side.
Hello, big fan. Thank you all for being here. And I wanted to ask, the original Battlestar Galactica had a male Starbuck, and I wanted to ask the panel, anybody can answer this, what your feelings are on a female Starbuck for this new reboot of the series. I think it was brilliant. I just wanted to hear what your thoughts were maybe in the early days, thinking if it was a plus or a minus.
Are you asking what we thought about it when we read the pilot of our Battlestar, or what Richard thought about it? Or?
Yeah, specifically what Richard may have thought about
okay.
that.
Well, you guys should also answer, because it'd be interesting to see what they have to say about that. I personally, I think it was a real compliment to Starbuck, to Dirk Benedict, that they chose to choose a woman, because that way you don't compare the two Starbucks. That way, this Starbuck can really be an original, and she could do, all these things that she did do with it. I thought Katie Sackhoff was absolutely brilliant. She's going to have a tough time finding another role that will allow her to use the talents that girl has been gifted with. I mean, obviously, when it came to Apollo, they just thought, it's Richard Hatch, No, I have to tell you that I absolutely am so happy Jamie Bamber was playing Apollo. I thought he did a brilliant job. I know everybody always chooses favorites about that. But you know what's so amazing to me? Sometimes you get these kind of iconic roles, and actors play many different kinds of roles. But every once in a while you get a role that really touches a deep part of who you are, and I think embodies much of who you are. And Jamie Bamber, to me, as a human being, really has that kind of integrity, that kind of heart, that kind of spirit, that kind of soul that you do not find in too many men. And he embodied, I believe, that spirit of Apollo. And Apollo, believe me, is not an easy role to do. It's not an easy role to pull off. and it's not an easy role to write for. You know, the more complicated, the more screwed up, the more fracked up a person, the more writers want to write for those guys. But when you got a guy like Apollo, which is that true blue, you know, good character, I think the writers really sometimes, you know, they struggle. They don't know where to place that character, where to find those places of, you know, conflict. And I just thought Jamie was admirable, honorable, and magnificent in what he did. That's all I want to say. I love it.
Richard, that was a perfect setup for my next question to Tomo. Tomo, many actors love to say, I love playing the bad guy. On Dollhouse and BSG, you played two strong, charismatic heroes. How did you make Hilo and Paul Ballard so interesting? Because if in a lesser actor's hands, it would have been just, oh, he's the good guy. What Richard was just talking about. Usually, you know, the flawed character gets all the good stuff, and Hilo's a straight arrow, but he's still compelling to watch.
I have no idea. No, I'm just joking. I mean, ultimately, it comes down to the writing. You know, I'm not going to sit here and try and brag about that. You know, it really came down to brilliant writing. You know, especially with Hilo. I hate to recycle my answer again, but to say what I was saying before, that was a really huge lesson for me to figure out that just by doing my work as an actor, doing the extra stuff, doing backstory when there's an opportunity for it, deciding what may have happened. Sometimes, unfortunately, because my story was a C storyline in the first season, there was big jumps, big shifts that I just couldn't understand. And I remember being scared, like terrified of writing David Icke. But I did it because I had to, because I was so upset about the fact that we went from one episode of me shooting, okay, Boomer, almost killing her when I find out she's pregnant and she's a Cylon, almost killing her. And then episodes later, we're walking through the forest talking about who the baby's gonna look like. I couldn't understand it. I hated it. It was so frustrating to me. I'm like, what? How are we jumping over this conflict? Like, this is huge for him. He's so torn up. He's found out he's sleeping with the enemy. He's about to have a baby. It was so frustrating for me. And I'd hear like Eddie and Mary talk about the script, and you know, when they'd approach the executive producers, but who am I? I'm this kid who was just starting on the show. But I remember sitting on it for days, and then I was like, I'm writing David Icke. I wrote him a letter, and he shut me down. He's like, no, basically, that's the way it is, and you're gonna do it. And I was like, okay, no problem. So when I delivered that line, though, I don't know if you noticed, but I delivered it like, I can't believe I'm actually saying this. She's like, who's the baby gonna look like? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, oh God, I don't know what the line was. I'm kind of getting off track here, but those lessons were huge for me in the beginning, and I was like, if I do my homework, I make some choices, I work with Grace, we do backstory whenever we can, because there were significant jumps between episodes, and it was just assumed what had happened between us during that timeline. And I'd make up stuff, and I'd make up stories, and then I'd start to see the writers write for me. And I was like, wow, I can actually influence this in a serious way. It was so empowering for me, and I was like, okay, I get this, all right, I understand, I have a choice in this. But, you know, ultimately, it really came down to the writing. They gave me good stuff, and you know, I think I did my work, and it's such a collaborative process, and you start to understand that. Eddie was touching on this the other day in the last panel, but the writers will write a scene a certain way, especially when a show is starting off and they don't know their actors very well, and then the actors act the scene out, and something else is created completely, and they're like, wow, okay, we didn't even see that. We have to write for that now. And you know, that happened often in our show, and it was beautiful. And once we all got to know our characters so well too, you know, they did come to us, and I was approached, but it was later on in the show, and they'd ask me my opinion sometimes, and it was so flattering. And you know, we were such a big, well-oiled machine that worked so well together, and it was like this happy family, but there was so much communication on that set. Unfortunately, like Eddie says, it really was like the most amazing experience. I'm not sure if I'll have one like it again. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yes, you did.
You wanted to touch on Ballard. I mean, Ballard, unfortunately, was only, you know, 2 seasons, 26 episodes, and I was very confused in the beginning of that. I went in brimming with confidence. I came off of Battlestar Galactica, acting with heavyweights, some of the best actors in the world, seeing the best work I'd ever seen, the rawest, most